Hello people of YouTube, it's your boy, Skinny Penis, and we're checking out the Elbing. Someone requested Elbing, and to be honest, it's also a ship that I kind of like to play. I should probably play it more. I spammed it a bit too much at one point, so I kind of stopped playing it, but it's a nice ship. It's unironically one of the more interesting ships in recent history. I always say like Elbing and Marseille together. Those are like very, very nice tech trees that have been released, and it's something new. It's a new flavor, if you want to call it that. It's it's not comparable to anything beforehand. Essentially, both ships have clear strengths, clear weaknesses. But yeah, great additions to the game, to be honest. And if played correctly, Elbing do be very interesting. Um, I mean, it's designed in a way that it hard counters light cruisers, but light cruisers get kinda hard countered by everything at the moment. I mean, hell yeah, they even implemented a fucking carrier that dumps on them, with the Malta and the AP bombs. But in general, you're not only limited to fuck light cruisers, your AP, with the improved pen, the nice fuse, and the obviously great arcs, and like let's say long range effectiveness, is in general useful against any cruiser or any battleship that so to speak, just gives you a slight angle to shoot it. I mean, it's not normal AP, not normal German AP, it's improved pen AP, which means most ships, if they angle up, are easily penetrated by you. Also, if you don't have shots on the broadside or angled up side plating, you can always use your AP to dumpster the superstructure. Like, you have to keep in mind that this ship is essentially fully focused on AP. Like, you never load HE. They buffed the HE lately, I think. The Alpha and the Fire Chance, if I'm not mistaken. Should be. But you don't really do anything with the HE. Like, the only thing you can do with the HE is because of your, obviously, special dispersion that only Elbing and Ragnar get, where everything single shell essentially hits the target, because it's one dot dispersion. You can target like nose and ass of battleships if they've DCP'd close up, and you have the 32 pen. Obviously, I think the HE even pens more. It's pen 38, so you even pen like American ships. Um, so you can target certain parts, but I guess you only really load HE when someone is 100% nose in, and it's a ship like a Yamato that doesn't have the best superstructure to pen, and you can target his nose for free and get very easy like let's say 2.2, 2.5, 3k volleys together with maybe a fire. I mean, the fire chance isn't the best. It's in general like German HE isn't the best for the job, but you play the ship around the fact that you're essentially a small little light cruiser without a citadel, which means given your concealment and your range effectiveness, you have a way easier time getting into certain flanks or positions to then be able to really, really wreak havoc on the enemy team. Like, you have an easy time getting on broadsides just because you do not have the problem of overmatchable armor and or like armor that is able to be overmatched and then be citadeled. Like, you're not really susceptible to RNG that hard, to battleships. You also have a whole bunch of HP to burn through, and you can even play Lucians on it, so you get the spotting procs in, which is, by the way, actually a really, really good buff on German DDs, because German DDs obviously don't tend to have heals, and the Lucians proc on tier 10 gives you like 3.5k. But yeah, do keep in mind that I've seen multiple people load a whole bunch of HE in Elbing, which is kind of pointless. Like, even if people are angled, if you just know where to aim specifically on a ship. Oh, fuck. Schlieffen torped. I mean, we do live in 2023, where battleships do torpedo boats. You do not want to load HE. You want to learn how to properly aim your shots on spots where you pen the enemy anyways, or regardless. Actually, everyone's like running away now, so we have to kind of go closer to them. But shouldn't be a problem. Like, I'm backed up by a lot of people. I got the cap. I'm still a bit concerned as to where the Haaland is, because the other side has a submarine and the Haaland hasn't been spotted there. So I still have the feeling that the Haaland could be here. So since like battleships are coming over. Yeah, look. He was here all the time, but he never really torped me. Which is lucky. Like, I was very concerned about Haaland torps all the time, because I said like he wasn't spotted, so you don't really know where he is. Also, because you have so much HP and you have great range effectiveness, you can open water quite a lot in Elbing. Like this. Like, you're pretty far away from the enemy, you can mostly mitigate incoming fire to a very small degree, or like you can mitigate it in a way that you're only going to suffer through a certain amount of damage. You can probably you can tank it a fair bit. I'm going into the corner expecting the Conqueror to go here, but the Conqueror is turning away. I don't know how worth it is to keep shooting him here, but I think we're supposed to turn in here to get a move on. I'm dropping a bit too much HP there to the Salem and Stalin. Okay, something else to think about when you play Elbing is it has on paper, that is by the way not a copium argument, it has on paper the second highest torp DPM on tier 10 DDs. Only Kleber has more, which is weird because like both of these DDs aren't designed around torpedoes, right? But you still get that high DPM on paper. Obviously Kleb is only viable if you rush with it. The torps really. Otherwise you have to play Legi Kleb to make like a torpedo spec a bit more viable. Like, it can be pretty funny in randoms. It's definitely not the most viable spec on Kleber, but it can work. What you do have is the torp DPM with long range slow torpedoes means if you just understand that these torps are certainly viable if you change your way of torping. Like, what you can't do in Elbing is torp long range on white lines. You have to completely essentially ignore the prediction most of the times and torp chokeholds. Like what I did with the Schlieffen, for example. Like, these common spots where you're going to essentially always have people crossing, or most of the time have people crossing, you can pre-torp them all the time. Like, since your torpedo reload is so fast, you just chug them out. More often than not, the timing works out in your favor, and you get a lot of torpedo hits. For example here, like, why would I torp the white line? I torped the rock, because he's probably gonna stay on there. And, wait a minute. Would like this guy to be spotted again. Oh, he's turning in though. It's a bit sad. Oh, I was the guy spotting him. We're going to smoke here and fuck with the Stalin. I don't want to move up further into 12 km radar really here. Just want to farm him out. Also, he can't reverse further at some point because he's going to be shot at from behind. He's going to stay on the rock, which means we have a pretty nice target to farm here. As said with the AP, even if he's nose in like this, you load AP and keep it aimed onto the superstructure. This is potentially suitable at that range, by the way, with Elbing. Like, you have the penetration. I mean, now my salvo got bugged. That's pretty nice. Nah, we only penned here. Not enough pen yet. I mean, ships like Des Moines and Salem. No, you can citadel it, as you saw. Ships like Des Moines, Salem, any light cruiser, obviously the ones with less armor than Des Moines and Salem, you can citadel at fairly insane ranges, but even something like a Moskva gets or tends to be citadeled by an Elbing below like 10 km if he's flat, so you're an insane threat to battleships, No, battleships. I mean, you're also a threat to battleships, but you're an insane threat to cruisers because with your 6.5 concealment that you can reach and the AP, you can essentially move around undetected all the time, and they most likely never know where you are. But you as a DD are an insane threat to their broadside. Like essentially, you're a bigger threat than most light cruisers, or even some heavy ones. Like I'd rather be in Elbing in the broadside of another Des Moines or Salem than a Des Moines or Salem, because I can just zip around unspotted without the risk of overmatch, without having to care for battleships really, and I can still citadel them. And I can citadel them more reliable even than most cruisers. I'm not suffering through bad dispersions on Elbing. It's not a thing. Like the dispersion is specifically designed in a way that you have pinpoint accuracy. No like big, let's say, errors or big deviance in the dispersion. Like as you can see here, I can mostly hit 6 out of 6 shells every single shot. Also here, the Conqueror was unspotted for so long, I got my 3rd spotting ribbon, which means I get a heal. Which is quite nice. I mean, this guy's gonna take it off me again, but we do be farming from the flank. We just wanted to keep, I mean, since the Haaland went into the middle of the map and essentially yeeted himself for free, we wanted to keep the BBs out of this cap, obviously. Also, I suspected the Stalin to maybe stay alive a bit longer, so I essentially pushed up in a way that I have gun angles and torpedo angles on his rock. Here you can see he's angling in his Yamato, but we can still punch him for 3k and so on consistently. Which, by the way, just is an example that if I would load HE here, I would actually do the same or less damage. I wouldn't do more. Look, I can see I can target the upper belt, the 32 part here, or the superstructure, and most of my shells do make contact and penetrate. It's 2k volleys. Sometimes you get a bit more lucky. Sometimes you get a bit better hits. Theoretically, the deeper I go into the corner, the easier it would be for me, for example, to target ass here. The game is over though. Well, it was a bit of a boring game. Like they still had 2 battleships, the Monty and the Conqueror, pretty full, and I still had a smoke left. So, given the fact that they were like, given the scenario that they would actually play the game and repush, I could have done 250k damage most likely, maybe even a bit more. Also, if people repush into you, your torps become a bit more viable too, like even more viable, just because if they cross towards you and like your torps straight up head towards them, they obviously reach their target faster. But yeah, it's like spammable torps. You can use the torps or choke points, and they're not to be underestimated. Like they're slow, but the concealment on them is good, so the reaction time on them isn't that much. Like for example, something like a Yodo has actually worse torps than an Elbing, given the reaction time. I think like the moment from which they're spotted and how long you have until they reach your ship. That reaction time, for example, on Yodo is like more than 10 seconds. I think Elbing is way less. This is the spec I'm running. Here, by the way, I would advise, like I'm running the spec because I would also, like I play it currently also on Z42, which I think is pretty good with that spec. Mandatory on Elbing is AFT and concealment in my opinion. Like you need a, what is it, 17-point commander, then you have essentially the most basic spec for Elbing and you can do everything you want. The Fearless Brawl one is a bit kind of useless. Like you could drop Fearless Brawl, that's what I would run if it's just an Elbing captain, and go for extra heavy AP, 7.5% AP damage, and PT. Reason for that is you're very fat and clumsy, so knowing, like you want to maximize the time you can open water farm in it, from kite or from a flank, and having PT essentially tells you when you have to use your smoke. And since you're not running Superintendent, you only have 3, so you can maximize the open water farming and the smoke usage a bit better, which is really nice. Since you don't have a heal, you can't come back from like weird salvos that hit you that you didn't anticipate. And the reason for this being a free pick kind of is that Fearless Brawl gives you, well, like Fearless Brawl gives you 10% better reload, but this thing gives you 7.5 better AP. but you're only shooting AP. So essentially, you get 2 free points here for the loss of 2.5% DPM. Like Fearless Brawl would only make sense if you also would shoot a whole lot of HE, which you don't in Elbing. You just don't use HE really at all. Um, there's no point in using HE, as I said. Like there's very few, oh wait. Oh, we didn't get into the modules, but the modules aren't like that interesting. Please don't go for, in my opinion, don't go for the torpedo speed. The dispersion is really good base, but for some reason on Ragnar and Elbing, this module is even more noticeable than on other ships. Like, I don't know why. It has to do something with their calculation of dispersion, but I figured like if I play Ragnar with this, the dispersion suddenly becomes noticeably more pinpoint, and the same on Elbing. And also, while this increases your torpedo speed, I think that's like the problem with the captain's skill in the module. They also increase the detectability of the torps. So while you get faster torps, you don't necessarily increase or decrease. You don't necessarily decrease the time, the reaction time the enemy has to your torps. I'm not into these kind of modules, like I don't know specifically what's going on there, but that's the only thing I heard. And in my opinion, you also notice it if you play a Yodo with torpedo speed module and torpedo speed captain. The enemy still dodges your torps the same way as before, because the torps I think are spotted out further, like they are making up for it. The rest is just basic, nothing special here. Obviously you go reload, concealment, prop mod. Nothing special there at all. That's just basic, very basic gunboat DD modules. You don't even have any sort of consumable that you could buff with a module really, like a coal module. So that's kind of nice. Like you don't even have to use a coal module to get way better value. Like for example, if you play the French destroyers, you don't spec Superintendent on French destroyers. So you really need the coal speed boost module. You don't really need that on Elbing. Like there's nothing you can improve. I mean, you can go for the Defe module, but I don't think any carrier gives a shit about that one. Like your AA, while it has long range and like 2 smoke clouds, is pretty atrocious. Like it's a bit weird that it got Defe in the first place. But yeah, if you play Elbing, like it's a perfect it's a perfectly balanced ship in the sense that you can spam torps and you're this super concealed hard-hitting AP platform in a flank, and the only really the only real threat to you, like the biggest threat, is unironically torpedoes. Like you're so fat and clumsy and also so slow that one misstep or one wrong anticipation of the enemy torpedo boat's position is gonna cost you. Like a Yamagiri or a Shima essentially carpet torping you, it's very hard to dodge that in an Elbing if you're caught flat broad or even slightly broad to it. The same essentially with Haaland. If the Haaland nails you with a torpedo spread, you're essentially going to lose most of your HP, if not like getting death struck immediately. Then again, you can kind of tank 3 to 4 Haaland torps before you die. So yeah, the biggest threat for Elbing is really like Shima and Yamagiri, because one torp on your broadside costs you way more than half your HP, and you kind of need it, as I said in the first game, if you want to open water. Like it's about maximizing open watering with this ship and using the smoke. Like only doing one of each is kind of shit. Like that's the thing. If there's no radar, for example, you do have the smoke, so you can be sitting like deep in the flank and randomly smoke up, and then suddenly the enemy has no means of spotting you for 1.5 minutes while you have this extremely cringe AP coming into their broadside. Yeah, I mean, we're a bit fucked here with the Malta. Like if he uses, or if he chooses to use a lot of rockets, that's something we can't really dodge. Also, our AA is way too weak to shoot down full HP squadrons of a Malta. Like that's not something that really works. Um, Matchmaking itself was originally pretty fine. I mean, submarines is something you also don't want to play against as an Elbing. That's like really bad. Um, but I mean, we're running against an Annapolis and a Conde here, so we're most likely going to have to use our smokes to kill those two, and then go open water after all. Lulz. As I said, like, in my opinion, if you want to play Elbing for the first time, or if you're like just getting used to it, or in general you want to have a very, very easy and predictable time, you should drop the Fearless Brawl and 100% go for the heavy or improved AP skill and uh, priority target. Priority target on Elbing is actually pretty nuts. Because it plays like a cruiser with the range and the positions. You're mostly in kite on a flank, spamming AP. You're just like less limited in your ways of moving around the map. So that's why it can be kind of funny or troll to play into. By the way, we haven't had an engagement with a DD yet, but the Elbing is kinda sus for some DDs. Like the moment you're a fat. By the way, Elbing counters Elbing in terms of DD fights. That's kinda nuts because you pen each other very, very easily. So you can get like consistent 6 to 8k chunks on Elbings. But what happens when an Elbing meets a DD is if the enemy DD is fairly large, but even the slim ones, if they misangle a wee bit, you have the option of penning multiple shells in one salvo, and that can lead to extremely, extremely cracked 6, 7, 8k AP volleys that essentially nearly two-shot destroyers if you get two in a row. Like, it is kind of sus what the AP does to destroyers, but if the enemy DD goes flat broadside, like a Shimmer, you're only going to overpen. Which, by the way, is also then the counter to Elbing. Like, if you run into an Elbing for whatever fucking reason, just give flat broadside if he's really close to you. Like, if you want to angle, for example, in a Smaland, like Smaland is a good option, or like Haaland. If you want to angle towards the Elbing in a way that you kite away from him, but still use your front turrets, you're intentionally giving him an angle to fuse and pen at the same time. Like, if you're perfectly as in, he doesn't pen, and if you're perfectly flat broadside, he doesn't fuse. But if you angle in a way that you can shoot him with all guns, but you want to, like, supposedly, like, you play it against other DDs, you want to mitigate the incoming fire, so you angle, right? That doesn't work against Elbing. You're actually griefing yourself. You have to change the way of fighting DDs in Elbing. It works different than on other DDs, or against other DDs. Like, it's the same as kind of Druid. Druid you also fight differently. You essentially just go perfectly nose in, so he has like 0 damage output on you, kind of. You go ass in or nose in, you either run away or like go close and you hope your team kills him together with you, kind of. But you don't want to ever angle up against them because you make them penetrate and fuse every single shell at the same time. Yeah, gotta be a bit careful there, really. Yeah, that's something that I suspected, that they have a fucking AFK brain damaged Östergötland in base, which kinda triggers me, not gonna lie. He wasn't spotted, he never torped. He's just a fucking AFK peasant. I didn't re-torp. Oh yeah, well, cool bro, you're sitting in base. Okay. This game isn't the best one. Also, I'm going to run into the Öster and now I lost way too much HP. Because I DCP'd the engine damage on the border from the Annapolis and right then the torps come. But I was like weirded out. I thought he ran off again like the Haaland. But I think he was just like extremely AFK this game. Should open up here really. We have to kill the Annapolis. It's kind of mandatory. But at 14 km I can easily hit and penetrate him. Up, we got like 4k chunks. I mean, if I were him, I wouldn't shoot back, to be honest. I would try to go dark here. Not really worth it to trade your Annapolis for an Elbing just to get like one salvo out on the destroyer. It's kind of dumb. He bursts, but he missed, so you go. Yeah, the Oyster is right in front of me. Gotta play it a bit cautious. If I spot him, I get 2 spotting ribbons, but if I spot the carry, I get a 3rd one. So we could theoretically go for that approach. I generally don't tend to play for this Lucian's proc that is brain damaged, because the heal isn't like 10k, it's only like 3k, so getting yourself essentially killed to reach it is a wee bit stupid. Wait a minute. Have to smoke. It's mandatory. Sadly, I don't have really much backup from my team. That's pretty fucking sad, not gonna lie. And maybe I can hit a smoke cloud on the... Actually, the Oyster is immediately going to torp the smoke, by the way, so we gotta keep moving in a second. I don't know how long I can actually stay in this, to be honest. I would like to stay very long in it, because I kinda want to... Ah yeah, true, you also have the gun reload buff on Elbing, which you can reach fairly confidently or safely with... I think I move now. It's becoming too sus. I haven't seen any torpedoes on the Iowa, that's why I looked at him. I have the feeling the Östergötland is probably torping me at the moment. Don't want to risk it, really. I mean, for some reason these battleships have a very, very, very nice interest in my dumbass, so... Not a big fan of that. But I know that the Pommern is a pretty bad shot. He can't really aim. The Ohio is someone who's aiming a wee bit better, but he's like turned away now. Like, he also can't really angle up to me and shoot me again. He already got citadeled before by the Iowa. Doesn't have that much HP left. Generally, by the way, German BBs and Russian BBs, again and again, I can always say it, even if you have better AP pen and better AP penetration angles, these ships have too thick of a side plating for you to effectively murder them. It's not really... Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. We have to turn flat broadside. This is citadelable as fuck. Like, I can literally murder him with AP here. And I want to. And I want to. He didn't move. This is like amazing. I should be able to citadel him, no? Yes, 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 yes. Oh my god, we're like an Akimov Malta. Oh my god, you can smash him. Yeah, 5 sets, dude. Oh my god. Oh, oh, we're getting the pelt. Oh my god, look at this. Oh, ah, that was nice. Yeah, I do admit I have a little boner now. Actually, the Östergötland, by the way, hasn't been spotted by now. Like, he's never been spotted. I mean, I could theoretically throw torpedoes in a, like, suppose the direction that he plays in. But here you could kind of see what happens when anything that you can citadel randomly doesn't respect your AP and then gets essentially like one shot by a fucking Elbing on the broadside. Like, any light cruiser has to fear this ship being undetected for more than like 2-3 minutes, because you don't know where he's going to pop up. Like, you can't just randomly move up just because you think cruisers and BBs don't have guns on you on your broadside, but then suddenly the Elbing pops up, you know. Actually, the Öster is extremely weird. Like, that guy hasn't... He has stopped torping me, but he's also, like, I think not torping the others. Like, it's a very weird situation here. I mean, you could see in the first and the second game, you tried to be as deep in the flank as possible most of the games. I mean, obviously you couldn't go there if a raider cruiser blocks it. But the moment you're deep into the flank, or you could also be very, very central, deep in the middle, if that's allowed, you can create crossfires with your BBs and cruisers, and you actually profit off that a whole lot. Like, you try to profit off this position of your teammates, really, and where they are, so you get the broadsides. Anything else to say there, really? I mean, if you have AR, by the way, on Elbing, your torpedo reload becomes really, really stupid. Like, you can send the torps out again way before the others even reach their mark. Okay. Maybe we can see some full pen volleys here, like Östergötland does get full pen too. Oh yeah, that was a big chunk. Three penetrations. That's the thing, if he misangles a wee bit, I can like actually like just penetrate him crazy easy. And you can see my dispersion is so pinpoint. That was only 3k because he's a bit too broad. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. I think the volley before that was like 5 or 6k. That's what it looked like 3 pens, 3 over pens. It's like 5k. I would add an easy time here in the flank. We got 180, no, it had actually 190 in the first, 190 in the second. Sadly, the first game, I couldn't farm even more. Because I mean, yeah, you could see that there was still 3 BBs in front of me. The thing is, they should have repushed. They didn't. So this time I was more lucky that I could get the carrier for literally 66k or so for free, which kind of saved the damage because the BBs again ran away the entire time. Very common these days, which is kind of bad for Elbing, obviously, because you don't want to hunt perfectly angled kiting battleships in base. You kind of want stationary fights where you can sit on the flank and farm people from time to time on the broadside. Do also mind that you should prioritize position in Elbing over farming. That's for example why I think the concealment on it is so fucking key. You live off the fact that you can position yourself better. You don't want to brain damagely turn out and immediately farm because enemy DDs can zone you extremely easily if you don't have concealment. Like if you don't have concealment, you have 7.2 concealment or something. So anything with like below 6 km concealment can zone you for free. And also everything that's below 6 km concealment can torp you to shit. So you're super limited in where you can go, and you're like forced to stay in positions and turn out in spots where you don't get any sort of good angles on the enemy team. And then it doesn't matter if you have a DPM spec, because the guy who plays concealment and gets deeper into the flanks undetected and can stay there for longer is generally going to get double the damage per salvo just because he has a better angle on the enemy team. Like the entire fucking ship revolves around the fact of seeing angled up ships or broadsides, right? So yeah, I think Elbing it's really easy to see that farming specs aren't more effective than concealment utility specs. Utility meaning like you have the AFT and you have the concealment. And I said like this isn't even mandatory. You kind of get the same value out of these. You lose 2.5% DPM. That's really it, because you shoot AP the entire time. You didn't see me load HE once in 2 games. It's just not something you do, really. The only thing, or the only time you, as I said, do it is if a BB already DCP'd, is perfectly nose in and very close, for example, to your smoke and rushing you. Then you can target the nose for better damage and maybe the fire, but you obviously torp him at the same time. So yeah, that's like Elbing. Very nice addition. It's a completely new flavor. We had heavy AP destroyers before that already with Kleber, for example, but nothing really compares or comes close to the pinpoint accuracy, the high pen, high velocity AP of Elbing. So it has clear weaknesses. It doesn't have the best concealment. It doesn't have the best torpedoes, and it's very slow and sluggish. But you get a great gun platform that doesn't have a citadel in return, and you can spam torps. I mean, torps aren't like good for predicted hits. Like you couldn't go out and predict a torpedo volley and essentially position in a way that you're 100%, or you need your torps to 100% hit the target and kill it, and that's how you position. You can't do that. Like you always position yourself around the idea or the prediction, the assessment that you don't hit torps at all. Like every torpedo hit is an added benefit. You can throw them out left, right, and center. They're like added additional damage, but you can't really go in 8 kilometers close to a radar cruiser or a battleship and expect your torpedoes to murder him. That's not really something. I mean, but then again, if you, for example, are stuck on an island, people can't rush this ship. That's pretty great about, for example, Elbing with the torps against like Druid that is AP focused. Like the ship is not rushable on islands or close up by fat ships, and they don't want to either because you have torps. Like the moment you have torps, people don't tend to do it. because they're like very afraid of them. But yeah, that's it for Elbing, and see you for the next video.